Welcome back to Connect for Health, the podcast and webinar series brought to you by Cigna Healthcare, Middle East and Africa in partnership with Mental. Each month, we're bringing you vital conversations around health and wellbeing topics to enable you to thrive at whatever stage of life you're at. I'm Scott Armstrong. I am the founder of Mental, a platform that tries to tackle the stigma of mental health and encourage open conversations. And as always, I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, Mesa Al-Kafaji, the Head of Government Affairs and Strategic Communications at Cigna Healthcare. Now, this month's conversation is aptly timed as we have World Menopause Day, I believe on October the 28th. And we also this month have the GCC Menopause Summit, which takes place on October the 23rd. And we're going to be discussing today shining a light and a spotlight on the life stage experienced by millions of women globally. Of course, menopause and the perimenopause. And our theme today is how menopause, it can be a new beginning. And I am delighted today to be joined by two expert guests, Dr. Fiona Rennie, who is a family medicine consultant with a special interest in women's health and menopause at Genesis Healthcare, also known on Instagram as menopause_doc_Dubai, and she's very passionate about empowering women to navigate menopause with knowledge, confidence, and optimism. And our second guest today is Donna Howarth, who is the founder and CEO of the Middle East Menopause Organization, MEMO, a platform working to raise awareness, break taboos, and support women across the region as they go through this life stage. Welcome both to Connect for Health.
Thank you.
Delighted that you're here. I'm going to open with a kind of like overarching question for you, Fiona, if I may. We often kind of talk about menopause in the concept that it's the end of something. And today we're looking at maintaining your vitality beyond menopause. So how important is it to kind of shift that narrative and actually look at this as a new beginning as opposed to the end of something?
I think it's very liberating time, actually. It's a crossroads in women's lives, really. And I often say to my patients, you know, you're free of periods, you're free, your children are growing up. We help fix the symptoms that you're getting, and now you can make the decision about leading a long, healthy life from here on, and that takes a bit of work. So it's not just about treating menopause with hormones. I talk to people a lot about nutrition, about sleep, about stress. Exercise is the number one thing to live a long, healthy life. So I think it can be very empowering and a very empowering time in women's lives. And they can really, if they take the right road, the crossroads, it can be amazing.
That's a great way to start the conversation. Now, our two guests today are here for you. So if you're tuning in and you want to ask a question of our experts, please jump into the chat box and post the questions, and we will pose the questions to our experts, Dr. Fiona and Donna. Now, just remember, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel or on our podcast channel, you can't take part in that live interaction. If you are interested in being with us live next time, reach out to Cigna Healthcare for details of membership. Donna, can I just carry on from where Fiona was saying and that initial conversation about reframing the way that we look at menopause and the next stage as opposed to being an end of something? What are the kind of conversations you're having with the women you interact with?
For me and our members, it's all about embracing a new chapter. It does present a wonderful opportunity for you to be the person that maybe you've always wanted to be. You know, perhaps you have had, responsibilities, and as Dr. Fiona has already said, children may have left the family home, and elderly parents and relatives may no longer be with us. And then we have this freedom, this opportunity to look in the mirror and think, right, okay, now it's time for me. Who do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to become? And it can be a very invigorating, vibrant, energetic part of a woman's life. And it's really important that we frame it in that way as well. We need to remove the doom and gloom aspect of it and shine a big, bright light on it.
Can I just jump in and ask, because the platform that you have, the Middle East Menopause Organization, I wanted a little bit of a backstory on how that came about, but also the people that join the platform. What are the types of, misconceptions or narratives that they've been conditioned and fed that you've encountered through those who have found you, sought you, and now are part of this, this family?
It's, I think, as with many women that find themselves in an environment where they're building the connections and community around menopause, as we've just been speaking before, we went live, Dr. Fiona. It all happens as a result of our own experience. I know that's the same with your good self. It's the same with me. And rewinding nearly 6 years ago to the UAE, there was hardly anything. And to think that every woman is going to go through this life stage, to find myself literally in the kitchen after having another failed consultation where I was given outdated information, I was just in utter despair. I felt so isolated and so on my own. And I just felt compelled that, I can't be on my own. Other women are going to be going through this. This is ridiculous. So I created the Middle East Menopause Organization because I felt a community was desperately needed. And that, again, is echoed within the members that join, in that they felt isolated. They felt that they were on their own. They didn't think that anybody else was going through the same journey as them. So to come into an environment where there's like-minded women around them, offering support, nodding the head and agreeing that, yes, me too, is imperative. We absolutely need that. And the kind of support that the members are looking for comes back to the wonderful work that Dr. Fiona does, in that they're looking for the evidence-based, up-to-date information that is desperately needed in the UAE and the wider GCC region as well. And as an organisation, as a community, we signpost our members to that information, support and advice that they desperatally need, which is why
you do my job for me by segueing.
I do apologise. I'm so sorry.
I can sit here and relax.
We've only got an hour. We could be here till next week. Really.
So, Dr. Fiona, just to build on that, Donna's talking about this need for awareness, this need for education. You're literally at the coalface of this, seeing patients coming to you, and I understand you're rather busy. What are you seeing, and what do you think, in terms of the awareness and education, needs to improve?
I think the awareness needs to be greater in medical practitioners. I think that the awareness is out there with women, but we have medical practitioners that are very skilled in what they do, but that might not be the menopause and perimenopause. And it's still misunderstood by many medical practitioners. So women are choosing a doctor to go to, and they're being told that there's nothing wrong with them and maybe offered antidepressants. So I'm talking about women probably between the ages of 40 and 50, which is the perimenopause stage, which is the stage where people are still menstruating, but they're starting to get symptoms. They might not be sleeping, they might be irritable, feeling overwhelmed. Anxiety is a huge symptom. Joint pains, hair falling out, emotional memory changes. So these women are really struggling, and they'll go to a doctor, and the doctor will check their hormone levels and say, there's nothing wrong with you. Here's some antidepressants. Or I had one lady who went back to a gynecologist 3 times and 3 times got offered antidepressants. Wow. She just needed some hormones. So this is what we're seeing. So I think it is, we need to get the medical practitioners just to think and maybe do a little bit of extra training, because honestly, there is a huge need out there, and every woman is going to go through this, and every woman should be grateful that they're going through it, because they're still alive and living. But when I was growing up, I don't remember any of my female relatives ever mentioning menopause, ever mentioning perimenopause. I remember a lot of women in the 70s when I was growing up who were addicted to benzodiazepines like Valium, Xanax, because I think that these were women, 50s, 60s, 70s, going to their doctor with these symptoms, and this was way before menopause was even recognized, and just given these drugs and they were all addicted to them. So it's like we've come a long way. And I got into this through my own journey, similar to Donna's. And I was a doctor, and I didn't realize what I was going through, and I thought I needed antidepressants because I had such awful anxiety and such poor sleep, to the point where I got bullied in my workplace. And this is another big problem. Women are leaving their jobs because they're not coping quite as well. They don't realize why they're not coping, because these are really high-functioning, clever, experienced, skilled women, and they leave their jobs before they get treatment. And so that we're losing women from the workforce. Yeah. So there's so much to this.
I'd also like to add another layer to that, and this is taking me back to a conversation that I had with a colleague of mine at work. And he had actually accompanied his wife to a consultation for her perimenopause, which I thought was amazing.
I get a few actually, yeah.
Because that's the other layer. So we have women at work, but then we're also, women in relationships at home, and that spills over into different areas, how you are with yourself, how you are with your children, with your spouse. So I thought that was really refreshing to hear and see.
And actually someone came to me, one of her, a big problem is low libido. And this woman said to me last week, my husband's been doing his research and he said it's a myth that libido drops as women age.
Obviously not on your Instagram channel. Big misinformation. While we're there, just for a moment, I wanted to bring Karina in. Karina, thank you very much for a question. It kind of relates to what you were just opening up there, Mesa, as well. But this is a really interesting one because she's almost talking about the perfect storm in a way. How do you cope and balance all the psychological and physical changes we women have during peri and menopause while your partner might be passing through a similar psychologically challenged stage of middle-age crisis, and your children are going through the changes of getting into the adolescent stage as well? So that's a lot of emotional changes happening at the same time. What is the kind of advice?
Well,
that
I
you
often
give to...
say to women, we tend to have our babies later now.
Yes.
So we can go from childbirth, bit of postnatal depression, straight into perimenopause, and then dealing with babies that aren't sleeping, and we're not sleeping because of the hormone changes as well. So this is where so for men's testosterone levels drop a lot slower than women. It's a little bit more subtle, whereas women just fall off the cliff pretty quickly. So how do you cope? This is where I spend a lot of time talking to women about lifestyle changes, because that goes a long, long way to help symptoms, prevention of disease long term, cope with all the things that are going on in your life, help you sleep. So it's a multifaceted approach really on how we manage this. But it's listening, it's validating people's concerns, and I like people to go away feeling that they've been listened to, they understand what they're going through, and they have the tools to then start managing that.
Can I rewind a little bit as well? Just when you were talking earlier, there was a question I wanted to follow up with as well, so if women are kind of like trying to extract practical advice, if women are going to their practitioners and they don't feel that they're being listened to, as you say, they're having that experience that the hormone test comes back and nothing wrong with you, take some antidepressants. How do they move forward? What's the best advice for them to navigate so they can actually get diagnosed or understand what's happening in the right way?
Well, I always say to women, arm yourself with knowledge before you go to your practitioner. Join something like Donna's group. Donna has great resources of who she feels in UAE a good practitioners to see, and just keep looking. Keep talking to your friends, find out where they go and who they've been talking to. But there is so much information available. There's some fantastic websites with everything you need to know. Social media, there's some excellent people on social media. There's 2 or 3 in the US. There's 2 or 3 in the UK that up-to-date, evidence-based information. So social media is a good source of information, but really just arming yourself with knowledge and not taking no for an answer.
I have a question, and this is probably a little bit more kind of clinically related, because you referred to the idea of, they'll go to the gynecologist, they'll suspect that they may have perimenopause symptoms, and then that would be challenged by the results, the findings of their blood works, and looking at their hormones.
This is my favorite topic.
Yes. So at what point?
Strap yourself in.
Yeah. And I'll say this because one of my friends, who's probably going to be listening in at some point, did say, well, how do you know when is the right time? If you've got the symptoms, but that's your hormones are telling them otherwise, how would you know when is the right time to go on hormone replacement therapy?
I do not do blood tests.
Okay.
I might do blood tests for thyroid and vitamin D and B12, those things that can contribute to symptoms. Hormone tests are pretty much of no value.
Yeah.
And this is your hormones change every hour, every day.
That's true.
And so it is pointless. And I get women coming into me to say, I've come in to get my hormones checked, and I have to just take a breath and talk them through it, because it makes no difference. So what these doctors should be doing is I've got a symptom scorer chart. So every woman that comes into my clinic, before I see her, she will fill out the symptom sheet. And I've got, I think, 30, 35 symptoms of the more common symptoms of perimenopause. There'd be 100.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then we score it, we talk through the symptoms, and that's how we come to the diagnosis. But really important and that's why I like to have an hour with patients, because there can be stuff going on in their lives that are causing these symptoms. So you can't just always assume it's hormonal. Not everyone leaves my office with hormone treatment. So you really have to dig deep to see what else is going on in their lives, what's going on, why are they feeling like this, and then we come to a decision together whether this is perimenopause and whether hormones would help.
I can see questions flooding in, and we will get to them. Actually, we want to crowdsource we want to understand where you are at your journey right now. So we're going to go to our first poll question, which should appear on your screens in just a moment. Just remember, if you're watching on the YouTube channel and catch up, or you're on the podcast channel, you won't be able to take part in today's votes. Just right now, we'd like to understand in the audience, where are you at on your menopause journey? And we've got A, perimenopause, B, menopause, C, post-menopause, and we've had a great question from the audience about that. Supporting someone going through the menopause, and another great question, and I promise we will ask that, or just curious to learn more. So just give us a sense of where you're at and what you're tuning in for today. So if you could vote, we'll give that a moment. Of that, we've had it while people are voting. I'm going to ask you both a question. Supporting someone going through the menopause. Agarwal has posted a question going, how would I be able to support a family member / loved one who is going through the menopause or perimenopause? Perhaps, Donna, I'll give you the talking stick for a moment on that.
Yeah, I think it's, going back to what you've already shared, Dr. Fiona, in kind of pulling out the people, doctors, practitioners that have that evidence-based knowledge. There is a lot more information out there, and it can get overwhelming if you're trying to look at everything that's put out on social media. So pull out 2, 3 that have that up-to-date knowledge and they're consistent. Arm yourself with that information, and then start to support the friend or the relative that's going through it. And even join a community like the Middle East Menopause Organisation. You can post questions in the community as well to further your own knowledge, and also you can post a question on the behalf of the relative or friend that you're trying to support as well. And there's also books as well, there's podcasts, there really is a wealth of experience that's out there, but you do need to make sure that you get the evidence-based knowledge, because there is quite a bit of rubbish out there.
I was asked to do a podcast by a male podcaster, and the sole purpose was because he had a relative going through menopause and he was hoping that she would listen to the podcast and it would help her.
Wow.
Because I don't know, but because no one could sort of approach it with her.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's actually quite promising, this. So if we go through the results of the poll, we've got 40% of the audience currently going through perimenopause, 11% menopause, 11% postmenopause, 4% supporting somebody, but 33% curious to learn more. So I think that's actually quite positive that people want to learn more about that. I think that's maybe a step forward, where certainly on the conversation that you were talking about back in the 70s, where we just was never mentioned.
I also had a question. So just drawing in comparisons, my sister recently had started complaining of a few things that I felt was very symptomatic of perimenopause. She is on the latter end of her 30s, and I don't know whether it's something that is it denial? Is it how early can one notice signs and symptoms of what would be indicative of perimenopause? And I know that there's lots of different, parts that make up this picture. But the more and more we spoke, things even with regards to the changes in her sleep, the approach, sometimes she just feels like completely lethargic, doesn't want to kind of do anything. Everything's slowed down, changes in her body. But she doesn't feel that she's at that point where she feels it is perimenopause. So how early does one pick up on the signs of perimenopause?
One of the things I would be doing in that case would be doing a blood screen.
Okay.
Looking at the thyroid and obvious things like vitamin D deficiency, which causes severe fatigue, and B12, etc. The average age of menopause is 52. It's a bell-shaped curve. Yeah. So it can be in 60s. I've got a patient in her 20s, full menopause. Wow. There's never a time. So it's set when you were born with a certain number of follicles in your ovaries, and when they run out, that is menopause. Right. So it's basically predetermined. You often do what your mother did. I always ask people when their mother went through menopause, and probably 75% don't know. And then say that maybe that 50 is your predetermined time. 10 to 12 years before that, you can start experiencing symptoms. So, for example, your sister, if, her menopause was going to be 46 and she was late 30s, yes, she could well be experiencing symptoms. And what happens is that those follicles that you're born with start to get old and they don't work as well. Right. And you still ovulate and still have a cycle, but the hormone levels are not optimal. Okay. And so you see a slow decline of estrogen and fluctuating. It can go high, it can go low over those 10 to 12 years before menopause. And that is what causes the symptoms, because every cell in the body needs estrogen to function. And if your brain's not getting estrogen, sleep, emotional, irritable, anxious, overwhelmed, memory, bones, joints, muscles, tendons, ligaments need estrogen, so people don't recover quite as well from a workout, or they get frozen shoulder that doesn't heal. It's just so many things. So there's not a fixed time. Late 30s isn't too early. You always want to rule out other things. Right. Yeah. But it's just this awareness that if you're starting to feel anxious and there's nothing really going on in your life to contribute, and you've never had anxiety before, think hormones. Right. And don't let anyone give you antidepressants. You may need them at some point, but we can usually work through that and rather than putting a Band-Aid on it.
I think, sorry.
Oh, no, go. I do
apologise.
No, do not.
But I think just coming off the back there, Dr. Fiona, is that women have this ability to leave things to the very last minute, to the point that they've become debilitated and unable to function because of symptoms. You don't get a medal, you don't get any reward of, oh, well done, you've got this far, and now you're completely
and deterioration of
crippled
their
with
relationship,
symptoms.
starting to break down.
Exactly. So it's don't put up and shut up with the symptoms. If your quality of life is being affected, do something about it.
Yeah.
We've make a note of from an early age, from your teenage years, write down about your menstrual cycle, any body changes, any symptoms, start to gain your own history. So when your time comes, which it will, then you've got background knowledge. You have an awareness of what your normal is. So if anything is different, then you can start to act upon it.
There's a new generation coming through. I've got, my daughters are in their 20s. They follow me. Their friends follow me. Their male friends follow me. So everyone's got a very different world.
You sparked a thought for me there, Donna, as well. When you say many women are not keeping that journal, that diary, getting to know. What is stopping women from doing that?
There could be a couple of reasons for that. I mean, it could be my initial thought is, it's something else that I need to do. And it could, but it is,
It is
depending
true.
on what our roles
That
are in
list.
the family.
Yeah.
We're already balancing a lot of things, and it's just something else to do. And again, it might be a lack of technology. It might be a lack of awareness of what apps or journals are out there. But I think the first thing is...
It's because they're not coping.
Yeah.
It's often because they're not coping. That this is a symptom of perimenopause, procrastination, struggling.
Is the education around this early enough?
No.
Are young women coming...
yes.
Because
Well,
as you say,
that's-
this is inevitable.
But this is just
inevitable.
what I'm saying. My kids and their friends,
Yeah.
they all know about it.
Yeah.
Did I know about it in my 20s? No, I was a
No.
doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No idea.
Oh, well, yeah.
So, and that's what we were talking about earlier before we started. That was the power of social media and the resources and the information that's out there. That yes, you have to kind of sift through, but
My husband he was somewhere recently with a friend who was saying, I'm really struggling, really struggling with my wife. I just don't know what to do with my husband. Well, she needs this medicine and she needs this, and if she takes this with it and this. And I said, I didn't know you knew that. Oh, I've heard it enough.
Well, I feel like I have to bring Elaine. Elaine, thank you for your question. She's asked, a thought-provoking question, and I feel we should ask the question. And Elaine, so I've asked the question: do we think that if men went through the menopause, we would have a much more developed medical and holistic well-being approach to menopause by now?
I think we'd have the easy access to the medications because that is a nightmare, absolute nightmare getting medications here. And I often say, if we were prescribing this for prostate problems, it would not be in short supply.
Right.
I
And
would
it is a
agree with that.
massive problem here, and I don't know how to fix it.
wow.
Can we talk about male allyship in this?
I think it's important.
I was with you at the GCC summit last year, and very few men in the room, and that was the first time I was actually exposed to the conversation and some of the research and the education and actually what happens to women. I genuinely had no idea.
Well, most women don't know either, so it's not unusual to think.
How can men support? Because inevitably, so many of us will be married, or we're in relationships, and we are going to need. This is inevitable for us as husbands, as well as obviously a much less sharper experience. But how can we be part of the solution?
That's a really difficult one, because when your partner's irrational and irritable and emotional and anxious and not sleeping and tired, it's very hard not to sort of take it personally and separate yourself and think she's going through some hormone changes. So it takes a pretty level man to do that. And you often see deteriorating relationships. And I did have one lady who said, I almost divorced my husband. I got treatment and I realized that it was me, not him. So it is a problem. I had a lady this week and she said, I'm here because my husband said, if I don't come and seek help, he doesn't know how he's going to cope anymore. I think it's probably getting the message out to men, and I think more men are understanding and knowing that this is quite a significant time in women's lives. But look, everyone is different, right? And all relationships are different, and some relationships have problems before this even happens, and it just is
There are increasing headlines out there. I mean, I know it's now been dubbed by the media sort of the Meno divorce. Donna, with your members of the organisation, what's the kind of support or what's the message to both in that relationship? And how we navigate through what will be an inevitable time in a woman's life.
It's opening the conversations. It's having that conversation, creating the environment to be able to listen to one another, to converse and to share what one another is feeling. And given the dynamics that Dr. Fiona has already shared, it can be really, really challenging. If I use my own experience, I think you'll have gathered that I'm quite open and quite honest and happy-go-lucky. But rewind when I was going through my perimenopause symptoms, I found immense difficulty in sharing with my husband what I was going through. I became silent. I became withdrawn. The kids didn't know what I was going through.
Is it because you felt that you were getting old and you wanted to? That was sort of saying probably not what you wanted him to. See?
I don't think it was.
Sometimes I think it's people just don't want to think that they're now in that next stage of their lives.
I think for me, I think there was an element of not knowing what was going on with me and why I was experiencing the symptoms, because we always talk, well, not always, but hot flashes, and hot flashes are one of the main symptoms. But for me, I didn't have that.
Neither do
My
I.
symptoms were mental health issues. And what I didn't know at that time is that if you'd had mental health issues in the past, then it's quite likely you'll experience them again, maybe different symptoms as you go through perimenopause. So to be honest, I just thought I was going,
But this is the thing. Hot flashes aren't the commonest symptom. I think mental health issues are the commonest symptom.
Yeah, I would
And
agree.
people
I agree.
sort of say, I'm not getting flushes, but a lot of women don't. And they don't get flushes until they are actually menopausal and they're not making any estrogen.
Right.
I mean, some do in perimenopause at certain times where your hormones are lowest. But so that's very deceptive, that one.
Can we talk? I mean, obviously, I'm slightly biased because I run Mental, and we want to have these open conversations around mental health. And actually, this Friday is World Mental Health Day. So, can you talk us through that psychological impact of this? The mental health issues that women will face as part of this period, and also some advice about navigating that.
Okay, so one of the commonest symptoms that happens first is sleep disturbance.
Right.
And I say frequently there should be a 3 a.m. club in Dubai because you get to sleep, you fall asleep, you sleep deeply for 4 hours, then you're awake and you can't get back to sleep.
Absolutely.
Often people wake having a panic attack and they think, what on earth is this about? Nothing going on in their lives.
Yeah.
And that's really disturbing. And that will happen, that anxiety and feeling overwhelmed. My own experience was that I was in a corporate job and I was, doing an 8-hour day. And what I could do in 8 hours was suddenly taking me 12 to 16 hours.
Yeah.
I was just feeling overwhelmed, anxious, worried about meetings, which would never have worried me. Just things that people say to me, I used to drive happily down Shakeside Road. I can't drive anymore. I'm having a panic attack.
Yeah.
So it's just weird stuff. It's not like someone's sick, someone's died, I'm grieving, I'm anxious, I'm worried, I'm depressed. It's nothing like that. It's just this awful. And depression isn't really a symptom. It's this feeling flat, lacking motivation, can't be bothered doing anything, social anxiety, not wanting to go to functions and talk to people and worrying about what you might have said to people, which is that overlap with ADHD that we were talking about.
Yes, yeah.
It's really, but the thing is it responds so well to hormone treatment. And people will say, I feel like myself again.
Right, yeah.
I can't even remember the question. Mental health. I've gone way off track. So The mental health, and look, there are people that get very, very, very low, and there are often people that have had awful premenstrual symptoms as they've been, in early life, and then it just gets, it just compounds and people become suicidal. But that's not common. It's more what I just described before.
Can I just...
Of course, always.
Yes, and you touched upon it, and we did have an earlier conversation about the pronounced presence of ADHD in menopausal and perimenopausal women. Could you kind of elaborate a little bit more about that?
My take on it is that these women have probably had ADHD that they haven't really realised as they've been growing up, and they've coped well with it.
Yeah.
And then when their hormones start to decline, a lot of the symptoms overlap. So that, worrying about what you've said to people, not being able to organise your thoughts, not being able to complete tasks, it just compounds. And so I do have many patients that get the diagnosis of ADHD in their 40s, and then we treat with hormones as well, but you sort of need both alongside each other. So I'm not a psychiatrist. That's my observation.
Yeah. I think it's still a worthy observation because I feel that they all interlink.
They do, definitely.
Yes,
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring you guys back in again. Time for our second poll. And with this poll question, which should come up in a minute, remember, podcast channel or YouTube, you won't be able to take part in the interactivity. Reach out to Cigna Healthcare if you want details of membership so you can be with us live next month. What's the biggest challenge you face or someone you know is facing during the menopause? And we've got A, physical symptoms, B, mental health and emotional balance, C, a lack of information or support, D, workplace understanding, which is something I really want to come circle back on and spend a moment on, or E, stigma and social silence. Maybe there should be an F, which is all of the above. But please, if you vote now, let us know what you're experiencing. Workplace understanding is one of those options. We've kind of opened the door on it, but let's just walk through it. What is that experience you're finding in workplaces? Like, Donna, are you working with organisations? Is this getting any better? Are women being listened to and heard? Or is there still a lot of education required inside workplaces?
There's still a lot to be done. Yeah, and again, it's another aspect of menopause. And the same themes are still there in terms of women feel they have to be silent and that they have to keep it to themselves, and through fear of losing opportunities or jobs, or perhaps being seen as subpar in terms of responsibilities, that they have to hide it and cover it up. And then it presents a really challenging environment at work, in that they don't feel they're able to speak to anybody, to share the symptoms that they're going through, to even share what it is that they need. And I know there's talk about, policy, having menopause policy in place and maternity policy, et cetera, but the companies, businesses, no matter how large, how small, corporate, small to medium enterprises, they need to come back to the basics. And if they can see somebody within the department or a manager, it doesn't matter who it is, what level of position they have, just how are you? Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help?
I've got a lot to say.
Because I was really struck by what you were saying earlier as well. I mean, obviously, women who are experience this now have probably been in the workplace for a long time. So they're obviously talented, experienced, and yet they're being forced to leave their jobs or feel that they're being forced out. And at the same time, you talk about we're losing talent. I mean, at Mental, we're always talking about the fact it's good business to be a good business and look after you people, whatever they're going through. But it feels like organisations are really losing talent through the door by not being awake to this.
Will you imagine you're a high-flying executive, you're in a meeting and you're in perimenopause and you're anxious, you've lost your confidence, you get imposter syndrome, and you're having a hot flush and you're just a mess. And most people observing that won't realise why it is. They'll think, oh my God, she's just getting old, she's not up to that anymore. And what I see is this bullying that starts to happen, this, just niggling, performance reviews, just But if it was out in the open, this is what's happening, and they helped. And the GCC summit last year, did you sit through the excellent panel on workplace? Did you hear that?
Yes.
I mean, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
And there are some very simple policy, things that can be implemented. And there was a lawyer speaking who's really pushing a lot of this forward. In the UK, it's mandatory in the Disability Disability Act that you have those things in place for menopausal women in the workplace, things like, flexible hours, air conditioning, not having to wear a uniform, for example, if it was a high neck and making them hot, etc. And there was a woman that sued her workplace in the UK successfully because she was discriminated against in menopause. We just have to catch up, and the UAE will catch up, and there it is starting, and the awareness in companies like Cigna with menopause, and so many of these companies have these wellness coordinators now, and I think it will gradually filter through, but it's a problem.
I just wanted to say, I feel there's still a lot of unlearning and unconditioning that is also from the women's perspective, because a lot of the times that reluctance to own it, to say and admit that they are going through.
Yeah, it's a failure.
They feel like it's a crutch. If you say that, I'm going through menopause or perimenopause, it's almost like, yes, it's vulnerability. It's showing that you're incapable because of something, rather than saying that that's giving context to why you are not able. So there's a lot of, I think, learning and unlearning.
You've inspired me to another question as well, which was kind of almost circling back to where we came in about reframing this for organizations, because the way we're almost describing it right now is that we're accommodating women, whereas opposed to, and I'm going to do a male oversimplification, but if you're a football manager and you had a player that was struggling with something that was stopping him from being his best on the pitch, or her, England Lionesses, amazing, better than the men, but you would look after that individual, support them so they can come back to be their best superstar member of the team. So why are we not reframing this in the way that, this is all about optimization, as we say. By the time women are reaching the menopause, their experience, their talent, they're probably in managerial positions. Why are we forcing superstars out the door? And actually, how do we help them thrive? Because it's not about just accommodating them so they continue to be a functioning member of the team, but actually, how do we support them so they can continue to be absolute superstars?
Do you know, it's society catching up. 150 years ago, women lived until the age of 50, so they got to menopause and died. So now women will live 30 to 40 years in menopause.
This is a good problem to have then.
So it's just this catch-up. We'll catch up. But, the diseases that we see related to low estrogen levels, osteoporosis, heart disease, dementia, diabetes, colon cancer, that wasn't a thing before. It's now that these women are living so long without any hormones. So it's catch-up. It's all catch-up and being awareness and what you're doing.
Can I dial this back down just to first principles and basics, and particularly if we've got some men on the call as well who are watching, just talk us through the different stages. So obviously we've got perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, and what do the different stages look like?
Yeah, so there, as I said, there's what we call menarche, when girls start their first period, and then their teens, 20s, probably their most fertile time. In their 30s, things start declining. As part of normal aging, you're starting to lose muscle. Your hormones are slowly dropping. And by 40, most women will notice a decline in their hormones and some symptoms. So that's the perimenopause, is the 10 to 12 years leading up to menopause, and menopause is when you haven't had a period for 1 year and your ovaries no longer work again. So what happens when your estrogen starts to decline, your metabolism slows, a lot of women notice that belly fat, that weight gain, as I said, muscles declining. So it's a metabolic change their metabolism. So we've got 20s and 30s, most women are good. 40s, most women will be in perimenopause, some with symptoms, some without symptoms. Menopause, it's 1 day in your life, menopause. It's the 365th day after your last period. And then you're in postmenopause. And postmenopause is when your ovaries do not work, you do not make any hormones. And a lot of women around that time will be getting quite severe symptoms, especially the flushes and the night sweats and the disturbed sleep. But a lot of people will adjust to that. It just takes a year or two for their bodies to adjust. So then we're talking about, then some people don't need hormone treatment for symptoms, but then they might want to continue it for prevention, because all those diseases I mentioned before, the longer you're without estrogen, the higher your risk of those diseases. But that's when the reframing comes in, and the longevity, which, if you strength train, if you're eating properly, if you're changing your lifestyle, you can prevent a lot of those diseases. So I say to women, yes, hormones will prevent them, but what you do between now and then will also make a massive difference.
And I wanted to actually really kind of touch on those areas. It's the kind of the lifestyle changes that you had mentioned earlier, but then, talking about longevity and really looking at ways through which you can supplement, whether it is, whether one has started with hormone replacement therapy, is to start, what does one do? I think it's become now quite common to hear the weight training, not even resistance training, the weight training exercises. Whenever I do go to the gym, I've seen quite a number of women who are lifting weights, that's the thing.
You have to lift heavy. Muscle is the organ of longevity.
Yeah.
And you lose muscle as you age. And muscle reduces your risk of dementia, heart disease, cancers, autoimmune disease, diabetes, osteoporosis.
Wow.
It is the number one thing, and people the worst thing you can do for your elderly relatives is help them.
Yeah.
They should be getting their own cup of tea. They should be doing their own shopping, lifting their own bags.
Yes.
And Donna's much more qualified to talk about this than I am, but as a PT. But, it's like this, it helps you sleep. Muscle controls your metabolism. It produces hormones. The more muscle you have, the lower your glucose will be, because it absorbs the glucose in your body. And when you've got high glucose, you've got high insulin, and insulin's inflammatory, and insulin causes disease. So it's just a minefield. But lift heavy and be consistent. Twice a week minimum. Never cancel it for anything. I did not cancel my PT for the podcast.
That's a disclaimer.
You were tagging Donna in there as well. And actually, I think this speaks well. Again, Serpil, thanks for your question. I love the fact you're getting so involved as well. But Serpil was asking, with post-menopause, is this the longest part of the transition? And do you have any tips, especially for the first year or two after menopause? What should we do differently? So this kind of really speaks
exactly
to that
what
lifestyle.
I've said. And nutrition. Nutrition.
Yes.
So
Mm.
Donna, come to your expertise on this
I think
one.
it would be, there's a lot to say
pressure.
really after Dr. Fiona, but really advocating what Dr. Fiona has already mentioned there, and with the lifestyle changes, it's your non-negotiable. You have to do them even before HRT. It's something
you have that choice.
To be honest, you should be implementing right from the get-go, even way before perimenopause arrives. It's because of the reasons already shared. But that, you've got to get those started. And it's never too late to start strength training.
Yeah.
You've got to start somewhere. You start off with your body weight. You get good form with body weight, and then you progress to the free weights, and the sky's the limit. You can lift as heavy as you can, because our Dr. Fiona lifts 80 kg in a deadlift for a 1 rep max, which is amazing. So that is amazing. So
Officially, that's more than I did, frankly.
it's all right.
I'm not going to say how much.
We won't judge you. We won't
definitely was
judge
bigger than me.
Can I touch on something? Nutrition. Because there's lots of different, kind of, I don't want to call them trends, but you have people who are talking about, intermittent fasting.
Just keep it simple.
Yeah. That's the thing. What do people do?
You can talk about that.
It's protein. I mean, for me, when I talk to my clients or I talk to women, focus on your protein and your fibre.
Fibre,
Is
protein
there
and
a
fibre.
baseline?
Take out sugar.
Oh, yes, that's
Take
a
out
given.
sugar. Take out alcohol. Alcohol
that's a
and
given.
menopause do not go well together.
Yeah, that's a given.
Fibre, keep your carbohydrates lower than your protein.
Okay.
And I think that's another thing as well, is that some people tend to demonise carbohydrate, don't they? And carbohydrates,
That's
need
the
it.
other thing, yeah.
you do need it.
Well, give me an example of your diet then, if you don't
Yeah.
mind, Donna. Like some of the types of things you're eating, because I know we say protein and we say carbohydrates, but actually, let's just give people simple answers. Like,
Yes.
To be honest, I keep it really simple.
Yeah.
I really do. So basically, I don't weigh anything. I haven't got the time to weigh anything. I do it on looking at the size of my portion on the plate. So I have my plate, and I want at least half of that, the vegetables, the broccoli, the cauliflower, the carrots, any vegetables that I enjoy, it's half of my plate.
Okay.
And that's my fibre as well.
Okay.
Then a quarter of that might be a salmon fillet, it might be a chicken breast, it might be some beef, but I need meat.
Okay.
on that plate as well. And the other one will be carbohydrate. And that again can be sweet potato, it could be baby new potatoes, quinoa. I don't really eat a lot of pasta just because I don't really like it.
Right.
And again, it depends on what I'm doing. So for example, if the night before I'm weight training in the morning, then I'll make sure that I've got a good substantial plate to help me fuel me. And then I will have a bit of a snack before I train. I can't train on a heavy stomach. But it's essential that you fuel your body appropriately.
I try and get 35 grams of protein 3 times a day.
3 times a day.
It's not hard.
Yeah.
You just have to think about. Look, what I say to people is, you can't do what you did in your 20s and 30s.
It's true.
One, to maintain weight, to maintain health. It just doesn't work anymore. So you have to be disciplined, you have to be consistent. And yes, it gets boring, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
And fasting is, I think, another whole podcast.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. It
Can I
is.
circle back on one just because of where the expat lifestyle? We have a lot of obviously expats here who do tend to, despite the education that's out there, perhaps reach for the bottle for some support. You just there said that alcohol and menopause do not go well together. Just unpack that a little bit more for us.
You
the
don't
reasons-
metabolize alcohol the same.
Right.
And what alcohol will do is it'll put you to sleep and then you'll wake. It affects your sleep. People think, if I have a drink, I'll go to sleep.
Yeah.
People, will, because of their anxiety, will drink because it makes them feel calmer. It'll make anxiety worse. It'll make sleep worse.
Yes.
For a lot of people, as they age, one drink and you'll feel like you've got a hangover the next day. And really what we should be focusing on is good sleep, training,
Yeah.
and our work or our day-to-day activities and our nutrition. And you add alcohol into that and you won't go to the gym and you don't feel great and you haven't had a good
So it's
night's
kind of
sleep.
this, you then
And if you don't,
cycle.
if you don't sleep well, your cortisol goes up, and then you struggle with your weight and alcohol. A lot of women, one of their main complaints is weight gain and not being able to shift the weight. Well, alcohol, you just pure sugar.
Yeah.
My 9-year-old daughter is a vegetarian. She's actually an ice creamitarian. But we will have vegetarians out there who may be tuning in today. What's your advice on the nutritional side to them, other than stop being a vegetarian and eat some
You
meat?
have to be, and Donna could answer this, but you have to be more careful
Okay.
because a lot of the pulses, the grains, they're higher in carbs than protein.
Right.
And so then you're getting your higher sugar levels and you're having the issue with your weight, not being able to move that.
Yeah.
You can't be lazy if you're a vegetarian or a vegan.
Right.
You can be fairly lazy if you eat meat, right?
Okay.
But you have to think about it. And there's a lot of there are a lot of foods that are high in protein that you can eat as a vegan or a vegetarian. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's you've got your Greek yogurt and you've got your paneer, etc. But as well as the carbohydrate, you need to look at the fat content as well. And again, fat is not a bad food. You do need fat in your body, but it does predispose you to a high carbohydrate diet. and it's going to make it even more challenging. So supplementation may need to step in. So you may need to look at your vegan proteins. And again, you need to be really careful with regards to the ingredients in that supplement
Because sometimes
as well.
in these vegetarian alternatives, the ingredients are worse than
You're looking
they
at
are.
processed foods,
Yes,
and processed
processed.
foods, they're not good either.
We did say that we wouldn't have enough time. This could
have
carry
we
on.
then?
We've got a few minutes left. Mason, did you have any final thoughts before? And then I'm going to come to these.
I've just got so many questions. But in all honesty, what I wanted to say was, I think what you have managed to achieve, Donna, from raising the awareness amongst the community
Absolutely.
is very commendable. And I feel that, yes, there is still a journey ahead, but it just allows for that sense of being seen and being heard, and knowing that together, with, medical practitioners who are above and beyond their field and discipline, like yourself, Dr. Fiona, that it's kind of really supporting each other, because I do feel that sometimes there is that disconnect between what, the medical viewpoint is and what, say lifestyle, kind of making choices and decisions, and whether it's food, whether it's how you go about, even from a mental viewpoint. But I feel that it's wonderful that you are both aligned. And this has been extremely, extremely informative. And I have so many questions, but maybe for another time.
Well, part 2, we'll come back. Just stay tuned for another 3 hours. We'll be here all day.
Yes, that's fine.
Just to bring us home on this conversation, I again want to circle back to kind of where we came in. And you were both very inspiringly talking about, this being a new beginning. So we've talked about some of the challenges. We've talked about the workplace. Let's just focus on the optimism in a way that you said this could be, a really inspiring new start in someone's life rather than the end of something. So just talk to us a little bit more about it. Talk to our audience again about what's, the source of optimism for women moving forward when they find themselves at, on day 365, they are in the menopause.
Do you want to answer that? I've done a lot of talking. My experience, best time of my life. I've never been fitter. I'm in my 60s. I've more energy than I had in my 20s and 30s. My children have grown up. My career's flying. It's the best time of my life.
I mean, you can sense it and you can feel it and see it. This is from my observation. I feel extremely inspired.
Me too. She's in the 60s and she's lived it more than me.
Well, it's everything. The glow up is real, as they say. You can visually see it. And I know that there are others who are not with us at the moment, but it's very, very prominent. And from where I stand, it's really encouraging, because, I look at our, I can't speak, but my parents, I look at my mother, and there's so many times where I want to kind of like give her that nudge and say, she looks young, but she has very kind of that almost dilapidated, my time has gone energy, which is quite sad.
And that's usually a muscle loss.
Yes, yeah.
And my motivator when I'm at the gym thinking, I hate this, I don't want to be here. I think of my mother who didn't do any exercise, sat down in a chair from the age of 75 and really then couldn't walk, and had a very miserable 10-year decline before she died. And my father, who passed away this year at the age of 93, and a month before he died, he was still lifting weights at the gym 3 times a week and was sharp. And that's what we have to do.
Yes,
we just have
absolutely.
to. We just have to embrace it. We have to make that choice. You just have to get out of your chair and go and do it.
Yeah.
And then the rest comes with it, that sense of well-being, the good sleep,
I think for me...
Go.
Thank you very much.
I really wanted, before we close, I was like, come on, Donna, mic drop moment for us. Mic drop moment.
I think for me, and the outlook, it's a period of liberation. It really is so liberating, and also the ability to say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't have to go there, and I don't want to do that. It's just that freedom of that's being who you 100%. Want to be and doing what you want to be, and just being seen and being heard. I mean, I think you can vouch for that, Scott, as soon as I come in, whether you wanted to do or not. But it's just a new sense of freedom. And I have to say, I absolutely love it. I don't know where the ceiling is. There's no stopping me.
You lose your filter.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Yes,
I'm almost envious that I'm not going to get this.
Come and join us, Scott. Come on.
Look, unfortunately, I'm dropping all my papers. Time is now against us. What a fabulous conversation. And thank you so much for both your insights.
Absolute pleasure.
And Misa, thank you again for being such a fabulous co-host.
you, Scott.
Thank you for all of your questions. Delighted that you've been so engaged in this conversation again. Remember, after we finish this conversation, you will be asked for your feedback. We would really like that because that helps us help you. That helps shape the conversation. But from us once again at Connect for Health, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you once again here in the studio.
Pleasure.
Thank you
Absolute
both. It was
pleasure. Thank you.
wonderful.
And we'll see you next time.